Scarabya. This is a very simple, even minimalistic puzzle game with an archaeological theme. The players represent archaeologists that will go around the world excavating different sites, looking for these nice scarab tokens here that will score them between 1 and 4 points each. The game is entirely multiplayer solo. Each player has a separate set of components. Each player sets up their own play area, and there's no interaction among the players. You do your thing, they do their thing, and at the end we see score. We see who scored the most. This is what a set for a single player looks like, with a frame, with 4 terrain tiles, rocks, and then excavation tiles. And just to give you a sense, and these are the sets for the other 3 players. The game plays up to 4 players. The minimum multiplayer, of course, is for 2 players, but there is also a solo variant. So you can also play the game when no one is around. Now, a player at the beginning of the game is nominated the Great Explorer, which sort of like means first player in other games, or Master of Ceremonies. The Great Explorer places these 4 tiles in any combination they want, and then they fill those windows with these rock tokens. They look kind of different from one another, but that's just for cosmetic purposes. All rocks have the same game function, which is to block a space. Once the Great Explorer has done that, all the other players do the same. Basically, they set up their own frame, tiles, and rocks to reproduce the configuration that the Great Explorer has. Everybody starts on the same page. Then you have this deck of 12 cards, each corresponding to a piece in the pool that each player has. Basically, each player has 12 excavation tiles. There are 12 cards, and I think you guessed that the game lasts 12 rounds. So a player will shuffle the cards, and then a player will draw the first card, and then each player will have to place their piece corresponding to that card on their own excavation site. The first piece must be placed covering at least one of the 4 central spaces. Suppose we're gonna do it like this. And then, of course, following pieces must be placed touching one of the previous excavation pieces by at least one side. They need to be touching orthogonally, not diagonally. So you're expanding your net of excavation tunnels here. And then what else can I tell you? The usual stuff. Don't make it look weird. New pieces cannot overlap. They cannot get out the board. They cannot look strange. And so simply you continue like this, adding tokens to your play area. For example, I'm going to place this one here, this one I'm going to place here. Now, when you place a new token and you close off an area which is 4 squares or less, and to close it, you can use the edges of the board, your excavation tiles, and or the rocks to create the perimeter. So when you have an area of 3 squares or less, you place a token on each scarab in it, and the value of the token is equal to the size of the area. So here we have an area of 3 squares, we place a 3-point token on each scarab in it. So that was pretty good, because now I have 6 points. And then we draw another tile, and we repeat the procedure. This one, right off the bat, I wouldn't know where to put, although I could place it here, and that gives me only 1 point. I'm showing you how the game works, not necessarily how you play it well. You have to place a tile on the board if you can do so, and you continue like this until basically all the cards have been revealed and as many tiles as possible have been placed. At that point, you count victory points based on the tokens the players have collected, and the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. And this is how you play Scarabya. Now, I think I played more puzzle game recently than I used to. And I don't know if they are publishing more than before or simply they're better ones and so they are more visible and I end up crossing paths with them more often. But I know that, again, I played quite a bunch of puzzle games recently between A Royale, which is here, or the Rosenberg puzzle games published by Stronghold. And I have to say, they're really good. They're all good games. Scarabya is part of this family, part of this group, but it has its own role in it. It doesn't feel derivative or redundant. What makes it different from the ones that I mentioned before is that it is so much simpler. It's easier to play, it's easier to teach. The rules are even simpler than those of the other ones. And so it just makes it easier to get it to the table, to play with a larger number of players. Some of the Rosenberg games, which are deeper than Scarabya, mind you, of course also take longer, nothing else to set up and to play and to teach. They have more wrinkles, they have more moving parts, more angles to the strategy, which is an advantage on one hand, but of course if you're not playing it with really young players or with really casual players or with hardcore gamers one time that you are tired or you have less time, then of course there's also room in one's collection and in one's game night for something that's very simple, very easy. You can teach it and set it up in 5 minutes, play it in 10-15, or of course in 3 hours if you have a friend that is horribly prone to analysis paralysis. So just don't play with them. Don't really don't, because of course the game may potentially lend itself to it. But if somebody is doing it, they are doing it wrong. Scarabya is a very simple, very linear puzzle game that, for a game this again simple, I would say almost basic, it still has a number of interesting decisions. It is interesting that there is a restriction about the order in which place the pieces are placed on your own board. You can't just place them anywhere you want. You have to extend from where you were building before, and that means of course that you're placing the piece that you have received right now, because that's something you have to do, but you're also looking at the pieces that are still there and you're planning what to do next. You're setting up areas where you in fact will want to add a certain piece. But then if you set up a certain area and the pieces don't come out in the order you expected, you may be forced to do suboptimal or a legitimately bad move simply because that is the only place where you can place the piece that you have received, and you have to add a piece to your tableau if you can do so. So I like the variety that you have there between the setup and the order in which the cards come out, which, speaking of, about another puzzle game that I played recently, Number 9, I like the fact that here the setup is different every time because of the different configuration of the boards, as opposed to say Number 9, in which you also are forced to play pieces based on the order in which they're assigned to you, but the setup is always the same, the setup is neutral. So you have interesting little challenges here based on the different setup, the different order of the pieces, the fact that you're responding to the piece that you're given now, and you're trying to set up, again, situations that will allow you to score big late, but they may or may not pay off. There's even a little bit of push or luck element in that sense. I could score this decent enclosure now, or try to set up that other thing, but if then I get the wrong piece, then I score very little or nothing. So again, for a game which really is add a piece to your tableau, so the Tetris-like extending your previous set, well, there are interesting elements here. I found the game much more rewarding to play than I would have imagined from how linear, simple, and basic the main idea is. I also find it strangely addictive, and again it is probably because the game is just 10 minutes long. You get into that let's play one more time. I find it also very addictive in the solitaire version, which, interesting enough, I don't have the same feeling with other puzzle games that also have the solitaire option. And here you have the standard solitaire option, which is in the standard solitaire game you're trying to cover all of the scarabs. You're not trying to score as usual. So it's a different victory condition, very hard to pull off. But actually I even find it fun to play with the basic multiplayer game, play by yourself, which is I'm playing by the usual rules. I'm trying to create enclosures and score points there, and I'm simply playing to beat my previous score. That usually is a fairly weak way of playing games in solo, but not here. I had fun doing that, just trying to score more than I did the previous time, and I failed to do so. So I'm like, just one more game, and I'll do better. And just one more game, and before I know it, I don't know, 2 hours have passed in which I've been playing one game of Scarabya, multiplayer solo or solitaire with the multiplayer victory conditions, and I've been playing all of these games one after the other. Scarabya in general, it is really fun, nice little puzzle filler. It takes less engagement, less involvement, less investment than other games that we are seeing coming out in the last year or two. Game of this family, it is an easier, simpler, more family-friendly, more casual gamer-friendly. Heck, it is even friendly, I believe, to non-gamers. So there is a place in a gamer's collection for Scarabya. The production is very good, the components look great, which of course that doesn't hurt. So in general, I like Scarabya. It's very light, do not play it with analysis paralysis players. It may be too light for some, but I like to play games in a very different range of modes, and that, you know, they appeal to very different players, to have a game for all situations. And so I'm also happy to have a light or even very light version of other puzzle games that I may play with different players in different circumstances. But from time to time, Scarabya will hit the table, because from time to time there is nothing wrong with playing a very light and yet still fun puzzle game.